What you're about to experience is one man's quest to see beyond the tumultuous period we're in and to envision what lies just beyond our grasp, yet well within our reach. Welcome to Larry Rifkin's America Trends, where the future has arrived, and it's just in time.
Well, Ted Hollander is back with us, and I'm really glad that he is. The book is called Step Forward America, A Case for a National Service Program. And, Ted, last time we had you on the program, the phones really lit up. You really caught people's attention. But lots of people listen at different times. So let's go back over the thesis of your book, Step Forward America. What are you proposing?
Sure. Good morning, Larry.
Good morning.
Happy to be with you this morning. And I think it's particularly timely because after the elections, the country seems to be so polarized. But I'm proposing a national service program which would be mandatory, universal service, everyone at the age of 18, with the age could change a little bit depending on the individual's educational attainment at the time. But everyone would go into the program for 2 years. And the program has a military option and a civilian service option, and the individual would make that choice. In the time of wartime, perhaps the government would, if they didn't have enough people in the military option, they would, lead more people to it. But generally speaking, it is optional.
Okay,
and
now,
the program
go on.
Includes and this is what makes it a little different than other programs, a very extensive educational program to kind of teach youngsters, well, how to live, if you will. Lots of things that they don't learn in school right now, and that they can learn, and it would help them when they get out of the program to go on with their lives. And some of the items that would be covered in the educational element of the program, there would be a heavy concentration of civics that I think that our youngsters don't get enough of in school right now. Heavy concentration in the current issues of the time. For instance, if we had the program now, they would receive some education in immigration reforms, health care, trade, gun safety, climate, all the hot button issues of the time.
Okay, now, would anybody be exempt from the program, Ted?
No. Other than people who had perhaps a serious physical disability that would completely preclude them from serving, or some significant behavioral issues, obviously. But no, essentially it's absolutely universal.
All right. Would anyone be paid for this? What is the compensation? None at all. Okay.
No. Let me go back a minute. And the details have not been completely worked out. Mm-hmm. But there would be essentially no compensation, but all living expenses, health care, and all that type of thing would be taken care of.
All right. The reason I raise that is, there are people at a very young age who really take over responsibility for a broken or disillusioned kind of family setting, and they become more adult than some of the adults in their family. So I didn't know whether, in fact, there was a hardship provision here.
Well, I should have mentioned that. There could, of course, be a hardship provision, yes, and I should have mentioned that.
All right.
You're absolutely right, and your point is well taken that that's an education in itself.
Oh, absolutely. And we've known many people over the years who've taken on that mantle of responsibility at a very young age.
Sure, I have too. Yep, you're absolutely right. I've known many people.
Is one of the objections that you might get, I would imagine when I look at the college system, and of course you're a graduate of Harvard and somebody who believes in higher education, as I do, But I would imagine that these colleges, which are churning so much money these days, that they would look at this and say, wait a minute, you're going to delay our crop, coming in here for 2 years. And then they might decide, gee, I've got so many other new skills and abilities, and I've learned so many practical things on the ground from this Step Forward America National Service Program. Why do I need to go to college right away?
That's a very good point. And quite frankly, I hope the scenario that you just painted would, in fact, happen. And yes, there will be some kickback from the colleges, no question about it. And of course, if and when we phase this program in, then of course it would have to be phased in somewhat gradually, or none of the colleges would have any applicants in that first year. So obviously that's a detail, not a minor detail, that of course would have to be worked out. But there are a lot of voluntary programs available now for national service and community service, and they're wonderful. And there are many well-known proponents of these voluntary programs out there. For example, Hillary Clinton, in the last days of her campaign, I think she was down in Florida, and she came out with a very comprehensive program for a national service reserve, if you will. And her plan was to hopefully enlist and train up to, I think she said, up to 5 million youngsters between the ages of 18 and 30 in community service or national service, so that reserve, if you will, would be available in the time of emergency. And it could be, flood disasters, or it could be any number of non-military emergencies that we might have. And the voluntary programs are all great. But
okay, we're talking about the Peace Corps, Teach for America, and the like. Do they
all of those? And those programs that exist now would have to be coordinated with mine. And there would be, again, some of those programs would qualify for an exemption if you were in the Peace Corps or confirmed to go into the Peace Corps, for example, and then that would take the place of the national service. Again, another detail to be worked out.
Okay.
But
now, nobody can look at this.
The voluntary service is that some of the youngsters who need it most would not be the ones volunteering. And I'm talking about youngsters who've got a really tough life living in the inner city, gang members, for example, people who have very little hope for a productive life and are just struggling to make it. Those are the kind of youngsters who might not be in a position or interested in volunteering in a voluntary program. So it takes a mandatory program of mine for them to get some good out of it.
If somebody said, well, Ted, what you're really trying here is a backdoor draft, how would you react to that?
I would say you're absolutely right. I mean, I wouldn't try to weasel around it, quite frankly. It is a draft. And then people would say to me, well, yeah, but we only need a draft in time of national emergency. And I would say, yes, you're right. You're absolutely right. But I think that we have a national emergency right now. I think, it's not a Pearl Harbor, to be sure. It's a different type of emergency. But we've got a lot of problems in this country that need to be addressed. And I think some of them, not all of them, came out during the campaigns. And I think after the elections were over, we realized that we've got our work cut out for us.
Oh, absolutely.
When I came up with, in my book, the reasons for the program, that one of the reasons is just basically to end our downward spiral, if you will, in our social, economic, and political arena.
Well, my favorite chapter, I think, would be 7, and you get right to the excesses. You show our place in the world, the fact that we are slipping. And how would you like to categorize where you think America is today in terms of that sense of decline? Where would you put us?
Okay. I do mention the places where we are mediocre at best. However, I still feel that this is the greatest country. It has been, it will be, and it is currently the greatest country with the greatest degree of freedom, the greatest opportunities. And I'm very positive about our country in spite of our failings. I look at our failings as opportunities to improve, and we really need to improve.
Oh, absolutely. Do you see this as benefiting?
I do say that we're in a downward spiral in some ways, but I suppose you could probably say that about almost any time. What I think is that if we can get everybody involved, every family has some skin in the game, then people will pay much more attention to what is going on in Washington, for example, instead of sitting back and complaining about it, as we all do. We will do more than just pay our taxes and get out and vote, and a lot of people don't get out and vote. But I think we will realize that for thanks for what we have, that we should, as I say, do more than just pay our taxes and vote.
Now, do you think that this will benefit programs and activities that the United States needs this labor to do in terms of emergency situations, in terms of keeping our park service, in a different place than it's been because it is rather underfunded as it relates to maintenance, whatever it may be? Do you think the greater benefit is to the society overall in those ways, or in the sense that you have a citizenry that comes out after 2 years of this national service program as better citizens and better informed, and for their entire life think differently about the country that they live in? What do you really think is the greatest benefit from this?
The latter, and I couldn't put it in any better terms. I think that's exactly it. An informed citizenry that will be enthusiastic about taking on more responsibility for the country and the way we relate to each other and to other countries.
All right, I tell you what, I'd like to get to some people to the telephone. The first time we began this conversation, they were very active and most in support. I'd love to hear your hardest question that you can imagine for Ted Hollander about this idea. Is this something that's been percolating in your own mind, and you'd like to share your thoughts with us? And anything that you see as a kind of grease, in this whole gear, anything that you think would help this or anything that would hinder getting this done, 203-757-1320. Ted, you've got to tell us, where is this, aside from you writing it all down, getting a lot of reaction from people across the country, people reading your book? Where is this proposal?
Okay. Let me tell you about some of the notables, if you will, who have come out quite recently in favor of a national service program. The number one, of course, is General Stanley McChrystal. He's probably the prime steward for something of this nature in this country. He's been very strong on it. He serves on the board of the Franklin Project, which is a project of the Aspen Institute, and they right now are making a huge effort to get more people into voluntary programs. They claim there's a huge need for charitable organizations for additional help, and there's a huge pool of people out there that want to help, and the Franklin Project is trying to put them together. Stanley McChrystal is leading proponent. But one of our Connecticut representatives, John Larson of the Connecticut 1st District, he's come out strongly in favor of national service. David Brooks in the New York Times has mentioned in several of his columns the need for a national service program. I recently read Jim Stone's book called 5 Easy Theses, the solutions to America's major economic problems, and in one of the chapters of the book, he comes out strongly in favor of national service as being a way to help this country get on the right track. Governor O'Malley in the Democratic presidential debates came out in favor of national service. I was very disappointed that it didn't become a debate issue. I thought it should have been a debate issue, and I'm not sure if we had elections tomorrow or started a new campaign, and God help us. But if we started a new campaign tomorrow, I would hope and I would think perhaps that national service would be a debate issue. I did mention that Hillary Clinton had come out with a voluntary program. The mayor of Chicago, Rahm Emanuel, came out recently in favor of national
Okay, so
service.
you've got liberals and conservatives. Do you have any sponsors, or the way you were talking at the beginning of this segment, you sounded like you're still tweaking things, because it's not yet a piece of legislation that somebody is sponsoring and co-sponsoring, or is it?
Here's where I am on that. Obviously, as you can well imagine, I've sent the book, and it has been received and acknowledged by both our Connecticut senators and by Elizabeth Esty, my congresswoman. And I have been in communications with her, and I've kind of, let it go for a little while during the elections and whatnot. But after the first of the year, I'm going to get back in touch with her, and I'm sure I can get an audience with her, but what I would like to do is get an audience in Washington with her and perhaps some of our other Connecticut officials, our senators, and possibly Representative Larson or Representative Himes, and get her to just convene a small group. And I would only need, I'd only ask them for 20 minutes or so in her office to see if we can't get something rolling in Washington. That is my next step.
When you look at America today and you look at some of the trends that we have seen, and the book, I think, that first put it right in our face was Robert Putnam's book, Bowling Alone. And a lot of Americans are bowling alone. And they don't see that togetherness. They don't see that, we're all in this together feeling. And that used to be, as de Tocqueville said when he came here, one of the unique things, all of these, fraternization that was going on, different associations that were built voluntarily, and a lot of that has come asunder to a point where you wonder whether a nation would grab a hold of an idea that is so sensible, that is being done in other places across the globe. It's not the only place that it would be, put forward. And so, America seems to need this because we're not really voluntarily coming together around various causes any longer.
Yes, I agree with you completely. In fact, I did, as you maybe recall, I did quote Robert Putnam's book in my book, and his point was so well taken that we are scattered, if you will. We're all going off in a different direction. It used to be that we had institutions that we clung on to and that were very, a very major part of our community life, and that has seemed to have fallen apart. And I'm not saying that's all, that's all bad. People are going in their own directions. That's good. They're being creative. They're expressing themselves. They're doing good. There's a lot of charitable work out there that people are involved in. But yes, as far as basic organizations for people to feel a part of and to get together and discuss in some sort of forum their interests and their needs and their concerns and whatnot. Yeah, that does seem to be slipping.
Well, we will follow this and hope that you have some success in getting it in front of lawmakers, because it seems like a great idea at a stage when a lot of our young people seem to be drifting. This is one way to help them maybe reframe what the rest of their life can look like. And I know you're going to get pushback, and I think the colleges, maybe some of the unions saying, well, this is all free work that we might otherwise be able to do. Can you think of any other constituencies that might assemble around this, other than parents who say, no, you're not directing the life of my child unless it's an emergency? But you are suggesting there's something of a civic emergency that is developing here. So
yes, we are going to get a lot of pushback. I kind of facetiously mentioned in my book an organization which I gave the acronym MADOC, M-A-D-O-C, Mothers Against Drafting Our Children. And I think there will be a lot of that. But I think I would love to get involved in the discussion, on a higher level on this, because we have a good message. We really have a good message.
Oh, I believe you do. Now, Stanley McChrystal, did he at all suggest how many of the kids, or have you ever thought about what percentage might want to go into civilian work versus military? And if we had an emergency where we needed a draft, I guess there might be the worry that the kids who are already signed up, even they're, cleaning the forests, that they may be moved over to the military faster than the others. Is that something that you've thought about?
Well, I thought about it to this extent. As you may recall, the program, the first part of the program, whether it's the military option or the civilian option,
they have that kind, yeah.
goes through a military-style boot camp.
Yes. Yes.
And so I think that once a youngster is into the program, they realize, and their family realizes that, well, you know, if we go to war, or if something flares up in the, God forbid, in the Middle East or anywhere else, I'm going to be first on call, right behind those who are already in the military. But I think that's just a basic fact, and that's the way, you know, that's the way it should be.
Well, Ted Hollander, I really thank you for stimulating us to think about this. It's been too long since somebody's put an idea like this in front of us and said, poke holes in it, support it, make it better, whatever. And if people
I would very much appreciate hearing from any of your listeners, if you can give them the contact information on any ideas they might that they might have as to how we might move this forward. I've given some ideas of what my next step is going to be, but I'd appreciate...
well, Ted, how do you want them to reach you? What's the best way?
Easiest way to reach me is by email.
Yeah, of course.
Give my email?
Yes.
Yeah, Ted Hall, TEDHOL, @charter.net.
All right, very, very easy. And I thank you.
Your listeners.
All right, it's great to have you back, Ted.